Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast. Steve, Ramon.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I am so fired up to have you join us today. And this is going to be a great subject because you're going to know I love this topic. And we dedicate this podcast to explore the idea of with a servant's heart, you can grow your personal life and your business life. Imagine making a difference every day just by serving people. And we also created this show to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you through my incredible guests, that you walk away and something's happening in your world that you can make an impact. And your call to action today is to think about how you're going to serve yourself and others today and what impact you create today. That's the key word. Let's not wait. Get messages. Hey, I waited 2 weeks. I heard your message and still go ahead and start serving, but ask you to listen to my incredible guest today. I want you to start serving. And that could be just calling your best friend saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Remember, service can be as small or as big as you want to make it. It still makes an impact. And today's episode is proudly sponsored by our incredible partner, Pantheon Alliance. Would you like to be part of an exclusive community of high-income, successful business owners and entrepreneurs from very diverse industries? Together, they're building a thought leader platform to impact and change the world. So for more information about Pantheon Alliance, just reach out to me and I'll get you all the information. As I always say, impact and change the world is part of my monologue. Podcast is doing that. Some of you know some of the big things happening with me. Well, how about a guy that's producing your podcast for you and has an incredible podcast himself? Let's welcome to the show my guest, John.
Steve, I am pumped up to be here. We've only had a couple of interactions before. You were a guest on my show last week, I think it was, and I feel like I know you. And I feel like we're old friends. This is awesome.
I totally agree with that. And one of the powers of podcasting is swapping.
That's exactly
swap
right.
each other and share their expertise and their thought leader platform. But people listening out there, some of you, I know I'm mentoring you. Why a podcast?
Why a podcast? Oh, gosh, let's open that can of worms, shall we? So why not a podcast? Well, I would say podcasting is one of the fastest growing mediums for media in the United States. And it has staying power. I think we all remember what happened with Clubhouse, right? You know, that grew like gangbusters for like a month. And then it's crickets. But podcasts have been around since, I believe, the late 80s was when digital audio was first recorded and used in on intranets. And then I think Apple made podcasts part of their platform, I want to say in 2005 or 2008, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
But other than email, podcasting is the longest tenured digital platform. So I think that's one of the reasons why podcasts are a worthwhile investment. I mean, just look at this last presidential election cycle and how important podcasts were to each candidate's campaigns. So I think those are just a few, things that I would point to is to say, like, podcasts are a great medium for your business, for your personal interests, to help sharpen your own point of view. There's a number of different reasons to do podcasting.
The election is a great point, John. I didn't even think about that. I've seen clips of Joe Rogan interviewing Trump and somebody interviewed Harris, and they're going to that platform for their marketing, for their election. That didn't happen 4 years ago. I don't remember. So that's a great tool, a great idea with the podcast. Well, what inspires you to take the next step is not just be a podcast host, but marketing podcasts.
Yeah. So I'll go back to, I spent I've been I graduated college in 2013, and I spent 10 years in marketing agencies. And I was at an agency in 2019, and I had a 90-minute commute to the office and a 90-minute commute back home. And it was pretty brutal. And I burned through all of my sports podcasts. And then I was like, you know what? In the mornings, I could use this time to just kind of like learn about my craft, learn about marketing, learn about like business growth and things like that. So I tuned into a couple business podcasts like B2B Growth, Two Bobs, Rattle and Pedal. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? This is actually kind of like, this is good. And, why don't we launch a podcast for the agency? And so I kind of brought that idea to my team, and they were like, all right, John, launch a podcast. And so I did. And in 2019, I launched my first show called The Visible Expert um, with my colleague, Kelly Waffle. And it was an interview based show. And he and I got together in the office and we recorded interviews virtually on GoToMeeting. And that was great. And I think we ran about like 30 plus episodes. And then from there, I actually left that agency, went to another agency where I launched another podcast called the Digital Marketing Troop. And I interviewed internal subject matter experts about things like SEO and paid media and analytics and content, very technical marketing topics. And then I was actually laid off from that position at that agency. And I went out on my own as a fractional marketing consultant. But I realized, about 6 months in, that my offering was a little too broad. My target audience was a little too broad. So I needed to narrow and specialize. And so I leaned into the intersection of my experience serving professional services firms and my experience podcasting. And so that the overlap of those two, that's kind of where Red Cedar was born, and how I landed on focusing on producing podcasts for experts and professional services firms.
Powerful, and it's what a tool for those services. If you have a service, I'd reach out to John, because I'm not going to produce podcasts. I'm just happy to be a host. He's going to be my partner. He just realized that just now live, that we're going to partner up, and we've talked about that because I believe if you don't have the money right now, build your podcast. When you're ready, you'll hire John. He's not going to take. That's why he's on here. He's a servant's heart with his business. He's not going to take your money just because you have to have it produced, and that's what I love about you. But as you're talking, I thought of Jason and Travis Kelce, football players making a ton of money. I think Amazon gave them 100 million.
Yeah.
And then we talked about that, all the TV shows. There's a series out there, TV series about podcasting. How can somebody leverage? They're not going to get 100 million for their podcast. I don't think you ever are. That's not the goal. How can people leverage it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in speaking purely through the lens of business podcasting, and even more specifically, podcasting for a professional service provider, a podcast is a medium to showcase your expertise, right? I'm working with a client, and one of his goals is to get off the speaking circuit. He offers financial services for transportation companies. And he's just spending so much time flying around the country doing these speaking engagements, and he's getting burned out. I mean, he's older, he's in his 60s, and he just doesn't want to do that anymore. And so we launched a podcast, and he's able to have co-hosted commentary with another player in the industry. They're able to have conversations with other people in the industry, and he's essentially able to scale his speaking skill without having to travel anywhere. And so I know that that's not like a direct tie to revenue, but it sure as hell reduces your operating expenses, right? Your travel budget. And so I think that's just kind of one tiny little example of how podcasting can impact your business outside of sponsorships, outside of lead generation, outside of deepening your client engagements and having those conversations with your clients and deepening those relationships and unlocking new doors to revenue with your existing accounts. There's a number of different ways that a podcast can have a business impact.
No, that's a great story. I've never heard from you or anybody where a speaker's using a podcast stress and anxiety. That's not financial, but that'll affect family. It'll affect your
Yep.
business. So that's the other thing. It may not be a dollar ROI, but definitely a health ROI is huge. And on a quick note, when you say the older guy in his 60s, I'm 63. So he just called me older, but I still love this guy. And I just make it a joke. It's just a number.
It's just a number.
It is. People listening going, okay, this sounds great, John. You're rocking my world. What are going to be my challenges starting a podcast or doing a podcast?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is just hitting record, honestly. Is the people love to put roadblocks in front of them that they don't need, right? And when it comes to podcasting, one of the biggest roadblocks that I see people put in front of themselves is, well, what equipment do I need? What headphones do I need? What mic do I need? What does my, background need to be? What is my setup, lights, all of this stuff? Honestly, with your cell phone, you have a good enough microphone to start recording yourself. And beyond that, the next challenge is listening to yourself. Right. And so, like, when you start listening and editing your own voice, you start to pick out all of the things that you notice that maybe other people don't notice, filler words, crutches that you lean on when you're talking or speaking. And that can be challenging just from just the sheer point of view of it's just like nails on a chalkboard listening to yourself. And it's something that you just dread doing, going in and producing your own podcast episodes. So those are kind of the two initial early challenges that I've seen from folks who want to launch a podcast. There's certainly more though.
No, there is, but that's the thing is, and I work with podcast hosts as well, or people that want to do podcasts, taking action. I've talked to a guy, I showed him how to do it 5 months ago. So he hasn't launched his podcast and probably never will. And that's okay. There's no judgment here. It's just, if you're serious about that, take action and record. And when you're ready, reach out to John to help you produce it if you want. So this is a great question I just thought of.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a great podcast?
Well, I think in business, for business podcasts, if we're just focusing on that, education and entertainment are the two kind of biggest forms of value that listeners can get from a podcast. And so if you're thinking about why launch a business podcast, why would folks listen to your show? It's they want to learn something. They want to get better at their craft. They want to improve a certain skill. They want to learn how to grow their business. So these are like intrinsically motivated people who are listening to your show. Entertainment is becoming a bigger factor. If you think about podcasting in the marketing mix as a nurture tool, so folks that subscribe to your show and they tune in every week or every 2 weeks or every month or however frequent you publish, they need a reason to come back and listen, right? If you're providing some sort of entertainment, if you have a co-host that you banter with and you give each other shit, right? Like that is a reason that people want to tune in. And so you're depositing value in the form of education, depositing value in the form of entertainment. Those are, I think those are the two biggest forms of value that listeners can get.
It's powerful. It's so true. We pulled up some stats when I was on your show. I think, audience, when you listen to these stats, if you're thinking about a podcast, today is the greatest day to do that, or today, or sometime this week, or whenever. What are those stats that we talked about?
Yeah. So, and I think we touched earlier on this past presidential election cycle and why podcasts were such a big part of that. And if you look at the percent of Americans who are 12 and older who listen to podcasts, about 50% listen to podcasts monthly. And this is like double what it was in 2018. And so in 2018, 25% of US adults listen to podcasts. In 2024, almost 50% of US adults listen to podcasts. So that's just to kind of give you the growth trajectory of podcasts and the demand for podcast media. Now let's take a look at the other side of the coin. So that's the demand side of the coin. Let's take a look at the supply of podcasts. The rate in which new podcasts are entering the market has really kind of trailed off since that podcast boom during the pandemic. So COVID happened. Everyone is locked into their homes, self-isolating. Podcasts became wildly popular. There was a bunch of podcasts that entered the market. I think there was close to 1 million new podcasts in 2020. And then that number is trailing off. I think 2024 is the first time since 2018 that I think it's like less than 200,000 new podcasts went into the market. So more demand, less supply entering the market. And then you factor in that I think it's like 15% of podcasts are active, or it's like 80% of podcasts fail to reach the 10 episode mark. So 2018 may have been the best time to launch a podcast, but I think that there's, the second best time is today. There's such an opportunity to launch a podcast, to capitalize on the demand that's out there right now.
It's part of our culture. It's what it's saying, what you're doing. That's really what it is. I think I mentioned TV shows, movies. Everybody's talking about podcasts. I laugh because my wife will go, "Hey, look, they just talked about a podcast." I'm like, "See, yeah, it's growing." So some people I talk.
It's enabling individuals to create a media brand around
Yeah,
themselves. And it's no longer, the cost of entry is so low, right? It used to be that media was, Fox, CNN, NBC, all those major broadcast companies, but now, anyone with an iPhone can launch a podcast. And so the barrier of entry is just so incredibly low.
yeah, and the return is high, and that's powerfully said. What you just said, and we could talk all day about this. But one thing I hear from people, and this is where you help that I don't do, is the return on your investment. The impact. How do you measure that for your clients?
Yeah, so obviously podcasting there's an expense associated with podcasting, whether it's time that you're spending producing your own content, or it's money that you're spending on someone to help produce the content for you. The return on investment in podcasting can be measured in terms of new clients that are sourced or directly attributed to your podcast. I think in the professional services world, that's probably the easiest line to draw. Sponsorships are becoming more and more popular with business shows. It's hard to calculate the value in the same way that media value is calculated for other shows that have more of a broad appeal, like sports podcasts, entertainment podcasts, things like that. They're able to leverage traditional cost per milli or CPM benchmarks for their show. Whereas with a business show, value is really in the eye of the beholder, right? So what's the value of getting in front of, what's the value of getting in front of 100 small business owners versus 10,000 sports fans, right? That's really the trade-off. And so if you value that audience, that super niche audience, sponsorship deals, you can negotiate whatever value you think it's worth.
Yeah.
And so that's another path to monetization and return on investment, is finding a sponsorship deal that can cover some of the production costs so that you're really not investing any money into it, but you're still recouping value in terms of the leads that it generates.
Yeah, and that's where a great sponsor can do that. If you're making 1,000 a month on your sponsor, 500 goes in your pocket to do what you want. 500 goes back into your pocket. Because this is a business. If you're starting to get sponsor, you need to treat it like a business. We've never talked about this, but I'm going to ask you, what do you see the future of podcasting look like?
Well, I firmly believe that we are in the early days of podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that supply and demand equation. The demand is increasing. It doesn't show any signs of slowing down. In fact, I think that podcast consumption is going to increase and it's going to accelerate. So I see there is a blue ocean opportunity right now So I believe that we're going to see, especially let me back up. We are going to see a number of new podcasts enter the market. I think more than 2024. I think we're going to start to see that steadily rise. I believe that podcasts are going to stick around for longer. I think this pod fading notion is, there's certainly going to be podcasters that fade, but I think that technology has evolved to the point where it's become easier to produce podcasts, and it's become easier for independent people to produce podcasts by themselves. So I think that supply and demand equation is going to balance out, and that's going to manifest itself in the form of a lot of new podcasts entering the market.
I agree with you. Technology is going to get better and better. AI is part of that. Where I be honest, I use AI to do some of my stuff. It is just a valuable tool, and there's going to be more tools coming because people see the value. And YouTube taking over podcasting back February of last year is a perfect example. They see financial gain there. And like them, hey, this is not about liking Google or Apple or whatever. It's they just taken over all the pod. Now they're coming back. I know Spotify's added video. Apple's making some changes. Now they're trying to catch up. All that means is exactly what you said, John. You're so smart. Is it's only going to grow. If tech companies are going to battle, they see the future is going to be bright. So get off your keister and start a podcast. We're coming to the end here, but that's the other question I want to ask you. Should everybody do a podcast?
No, I don't think everybody should do a podcast. I think that, there's a number of ways to do a podcast, right? You could have interview shows like you do, Steve. You could have co-hosted commentary where it's you and another person and you've got that friendly banter. You could do monologues where it's just you and a microphone or you and a video camera. And so, those three scenarios that I just laid out require different personalities for each one.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the biggest thing is like, what is your personality? And are you more of a quiet, curious person? Then maybe an interview show is more up your alley. Do you love to talk, and could you just talk nonstop? Maybe a monologue is more up your alley. So I think that's kind of like the first thing is to like do an assessment of your personality, and does a podcast make sense for that?
You're a genius. I'm just gonna flat out say it. That is so
You're too
smart.
kind.
You just made it sound simple. I'm a simpleton. Maybe that's me at 63, but that's as simple as it is. And I love podcasting. I think everybody should do it, but everybody should. I got to back that up, and I got to be careful because it's just not for everybody. But I love how you broke it down. You broke it down so well. Here's some genres you can do. Figure that out and see where we can go from there. Okay, we've come to the end. Yeah, I know you got a lot on your plate. Audience, I may be announcing a new podcast with somebody you may know. I don't know. We're going to talk later because I like what you said about the banter. I like those podcasts. I like hearing, and hey, the subjects of the election, not being political, but hey, you see this is, and this happened for 10, 15 minutes. It's kind of cool to kind of get a different perspective.
Well, and with a co-host, you have built-in chemistry. With a guest, you need to reestablish rapport on every single episode. And that can be challenging for hosts who may not understand how to do that. Like Steve, you do that really, really well. And so you're a master at building rapport with your guests. And I think a lot of podcast hosts could take a page out of your book because I hear a lot of the same clunky questions, flat questions asked to guests. And it's like, oh, man, you could be doing so much better.
Scratch the chalkboard. I mean,
right.
It's how long have you been doing it? Why are you doing it? Yeah. And that's a great tip what John just gave you. If you have a podcast listening, unique questions. Use AI or whatever, figure that out, but make it unique and different. And I'll give you all a tip. What I ask in my form is, what's 3 questions you've never been asked? So even ask your guests before they come on. So that's a little tip from me. John's given many more tips. Yeah, it's really cool. It kind of get different. Some people go, I don't know the answer. Or people go, that's unique, and they'll give you very unique answers. So I love ending the show with a little improv.
Okay.
I don't think I've told you this, so you're going to be surprised. So you've got a reservation at a restaurant, table of 4.
All right.
You've of course sit in one of the chairs. Who would you invite, dead or alive, why are they invited to the dinner, and what food would you order?
Oh man. So I've got 3 other chairs.
Yep.
Okay. Um, I live in Virginia. I'm a big history buff. One of those seats has to be Thomas Jefferson. So there's one. Um, you know what? I think sticking with that, I'm gonna go with a couple other founding fathers. Put Ben Franklin in there too, and let's put George Washington. We'll have a party.
That would be fun. What would they be eating though?
Oh yeah, you did ask that.
This is on your side. What's your favorites? We don't know what they eat, but what would you like to have? I'm sure they'll eat it.
Oh man, that just screams steak and potatoes. I don't know why, but that's what we'd be eating.
That's what came to my head when you said those 3. They just seem like steak and potato guys, putting their fist out on the table like,
That's right.
yeah, we should have done this. And the Declaration is done, it would be fun.
Maybe Ben Franklin would have a turkey, but
yeah.
right?
Very
Didn't
good.
he,
Very
he
good.
he wanted that to be the national bird, was a turkey over the eagle. And that got shot down, but
hey, excuse the pun. Shut down. We'll leave it at that. That was not a good joke. Kind of good joke. Well, John, this has been awesome. You're such a blessing to podcast. I'm so glad I was able to meet you and work with you and hopefully work in the future, because you definitely an integral part of podcasting, and you do with such humbleness and professionalism. How can people support you, connect with you, and reach out and find out more?
Check out my website, redcedarmarketing.com. My show, Podcasting and Professional Services, features profiles of business podcasters. So if you're looking for examples of business podcasters and how they approach their shows, check out that show. And I think, those are the 2 places that I would point people to. I'm very active on LinkedIn too. So connect with me on LinkedIn.
Great. That way you can message him. And in your website, I think I saw a contact page so they can fill it out.
Yep.
If they have questions and want to learn more about Red Cedar Marketing. Again, thank you, John. I knew it'd be great, and you bypassed all my thoughts on that. So I truly appreciate that, because you did educate, motivate, inspire my audience.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show, and thank you for being a guest on my show. So I like that we could do this swap.
Yeah, it's great. We'll do it again next year. We'll come back. He's got a lot more to talk about that's going to blow you guys away. And your call to action, I've been told, that's why I do this. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, because he'll be out in a couple of days. It's probably not for the reasons you think. It's okay if people want subscribers, sponsors, and all that, and that's cool. But here's the powerful thing. I'm a servant heart, doing business with servant's heart. John's the same way. Imagine you listen to John's podcast and go, my friend's starting this podcast. He's got to learn about John. You take that YouTube link and you share it with them. They listen to this 10, 15 minutes and go, because they can bypass the monologue. They don't need to listen to me, but if they want to, they can. But learn about John, his passions, what he does, and then connect them. Go to the contact page on the website. Say, hey, I just saw you on Steve's podcast. I learned a lot about you. I'm interested. It's not talked about a lot, but that to me is one of the big powers of podcasting, is you being a servant's heart, sharing a short link, and they can watch 5 or 10 minutes or listen to 5 or 10 minutes and be able to connect. The other thing is comment on the YouTube channel. And it's for John. You need to ask him something. I'll get that to him. I'll email it to him. If it's about the podcast and it's a critique, love to hear it, because me and John, this podcast is for you guys to educate, motivate, and inspire. So if it's something that makes the podcast better, I know John does that with his clients, as we talked about it. We're always growing. I mean, look at TV, how much it's changed in 50 years. Well, podcasting will change as well. And I'm here to help you guys get more out of these podcasts if we can do that. And as always, me and John want to thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll see you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.